Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to 2026. So far, it's been winter here in St. Thomas, and we're all set to go with the first meeting of the 146th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. And we're all set. So any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, moving on to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on December the 15th, 2025 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No presentations this evening. Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee, strategic direction and development. First item relates to proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to implement the 2025 transportation master plan. This is a follow-up report. I have a motion that report PD 0226 relating to the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to implement the 2025 transportation master plan be received for information. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Rymal.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. On one of the schedules to tonight's agenda item, it talks about, I just want to clarify, the setbacks on some of the homes, some of the buildings and structures along some of the roads. They seem to be quite a big, from 50 feet to 38 feet or so. I'm just asking the question, if a home is destroyed by fire, for example, on one of the streets that are listed here, and the house has to be removed completely and rebuilt, does the new setback fall into place?
Great question. I'm looking to the expert panel we have on this side.
So through your worship, effectively, like if a home did burn down, there'd be certain permissions to build what was there, sort of depending on the context. But, if say, for example, several years had gone by and they were outside of that permissions and they chose to rebuild on that lot or rebuild in a bit of a different configuration, there would also be the ability to go through a minor variance in order to build a dwelling closer than the setbacks outlined in the zoning bylaw. I would also say that for the setbacks, it's not entirely clear because it relies on the definition of setback in the zoning bylaw, but those setbacks are taken from the center line of the road, not sort of from the street edge. They're taken from the center line of the road, and then there's the front yard setback on top of that.
So the answer is kinda. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Kind of. I'm glad to know that it's from the center of the road. It's just that there are streets, for example, I'll pick on one, Antrim Street, which is behind the library back in this section here, where we've got a 10-meter setback on a 108-foot deep lot. And these houses are built basically at the sidewalk. There is no front yard on many of these houses. So by the time you add in a 10-meter, which is about 32 feet, 32-foot setback, now we've got the house in the middle of the property, which will then not meet the rear yard setback. So that's where I was wondering. I mean, we're going to see an item come up in 7B where the setbacks on the community planning permit where the setbacks are 6 meters. So on a small street like that where you have a road, a sidewalk, and a front step, we've got setbacks of 10 meters. So I was just concerned, just want to make sure people are aware that if the house is destroyed, we may not be able to build a house on that property or with some major restrictions. Thank you.
Did I see another hand for questions or comments? Any further response?
I'll provide just a bit of a response. For the most part, if a house is like Michelle was mentioning, if a house was destroyed by fire, it can relocate in that exact same spot. The foundation is usually doesn't get destroyed as part of a fire, so you could rebuild it in that same spot. But also, as was mentioned by Michelle, those setbacks are from the center of the road. So most roads are 66 feet wide, roughly. So the center of the road would leave a 33 foot setback or width of just the road itself, and then the setback is measured from there. So it's not as drastic as you kind of mentioned there in terms of that you'd have to set the house way back, like lose half of the lot. I don't see that happening in many circumstances, if any at all.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That is carried.
Next item relates to community planning permit bylaw for the area of Elm, Wilson, and Victor Drive. I have a motion that report CMO 0226 relating to community planning permit bylaw for the Elm, Wilson, Victor area be received for information, and further the council authorize staff to prepare a new community planning permit bylaw for this area for consideration and decision of council, and further that a public information center, an open house, be scheduled for January 28th, and a public meeting regarding a new community planning permit bylaw be scheduled for February the 9th, 2026, in accordance with the Ontario Planning Act and regulations. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Clark?
I was just wondering if staff could review for us, just in some general terms, some of the benefits of this approach, and if whether they think there's any drawbacks.
Thank you. And through your worship, there's several
We already
benefits.
have all three making, that's great.
There we go.
It's
Through your worship, there are several benefits to using a community planning permit system. One, it does provide clear and predictable uses and also variations that are known for both the developer, the public, council, and staff. There are some things you can do in a community planning permit bylaw that you can't otherwise do in a zoning bylaw. And so there's a little bit more flexibility and a range that, depending on that particular site, that particular permit application, then you have some more flexibility, but you can also put more objectives. You can also do things like community benefits. So if a developer is looking to do a little bit higher height or density, that might be considered if it's justified and if they provide community benefits, such as affordable housing or improvements to the public realm. Some active transportation might be about environmental sustainability or parks and trails. There's a number of other things for the developer too, that there's a pretty fast timeline. So once you have a bylaw, a permit application, a decision is needed within 45 days. And so that's pretty quick. And basically it's replacing zoning, site plan, and minor variance, which could take several months, and it happens pretty quickly.
Councillor Clark?
And just as a follow-up, any negatives, do you see any precedents that you're setting? You know, for example, you mentioned community benefits where we trade X number of dollars for an extra, floor or more affordable units. Do you foresee in using that where developers then might on another project that's doesn't have this community benefit that we'll get into any negative factors down the road in conversations with developers because the expectation has been set that they can trade off things?
Through your worship, so there are, I guess when looking at this, it is fairly new. This is a new process, a new tool. It has been used in other municipalities, so we can learn from other municipalities. It could be interesting if this is a good pilot and this works. We're kind of focusing it on essentially just a couple properties that are held by just one developer plus the city. So we can test this out, and that might be a product of this, that it's successful. And there are other areas of the city that we'd be looking at to try and do these same type of things. So it is fairly new, and that's why we're managing it through this consultation, through our internal review. The bylaw itself has procedures in it as well. So the public, council, staff would know how are these permits going to be reviewed? What's the process like? And so that's kind of how we're managing that as well.
Councillor Gibson?
So I'm just looking at the table here, and it said cash in lieu contribution towards the St. Thomas Elgin Social Housing's affordable housing programs. Is that similar to what we did with Prespa and on Flora Street? Is it similar to that?
Please.
Through your worship, no, I don't think that that's a separate thing. I think on Flora Street, it was just like a one-off arrangement that we made with Prespa. This would be that what you noted there would be a community benefit that the developer would have to provide in order to achieve increase in density and height limits at this site.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the report. I drive by the site almost every day and I see the hole dug, everything ready to go. Reading your report, you're having a public meeting in the Peter Lynchman Memorial. Is there anything that can come out of this meeting that would delay the project, or are they not connected? Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, through your worship, partly what we're doing with identifying these lands for a community planning permit is it's what the municipality can partly do to help facilitate with the future redevelopment of the site. You know, the landowner's been doing some cleanup work. We are looking for housing. We're looking for the sites to be redeveloped. And so us doing that helps. It is a legislative requirement that we do the public engagement. We do want to get input from the community and those that live or have property in and around that area so that they're aware of what's being proposed with this planning tool, what this bylaw could allow in terms of future development. So now is the time for the surrounding public to come provide some comments. Those are things that staff, we can take into account when we bring a final recommendation and bylaw to council for a decision, and then you'll be aware of for making a decision.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, So you're telling me that the developer doesn't have any plans ready to build or anything ready to go in front of you to say, if there's no issues, I'll start to build? I mean, that's a mega project there, right? You'd have to think with all the clearing they've done, and they've put in a few pylons already, like they're ready to dig. I'm assuming in spring, the big machines are going to come in, they're going to start putting it up. They got to have plans.
Yeah.
And yet you want to throw some bylaws at them?
No, good
I'm
question.
not sure. Thank you.
Good question, Your Worship. And I'll just answer briefly and anyone can follow up. As things stand now, the developer doesn't have a principle of land use to build anything. So they have to go through a planning application in order to get a principle of land use there for residential and residential in the manner that they seek. So the CPPS is a planning act process that we're going through in rather than the traditional planning act process of an OPAZ.
Yeah, through your worship, just to dovetail to that. So there are some preliminary consultations with the main developer landowner, and we understand that they are interested in moving ahead with the site. And part of what we're doing is helping facilitate that so that it could happen sooner, faster. And by the city leading it, it also provides some more predictability. So we do expect that if we can get this bylaw in place very soon, that they would be following up with an application for the development.
Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a quick one. For that public meeting, will there be a kind of like a concept drawing or a concept of what might be there? I'm not asking whether the developers provided that to you, but is this, whether we've got Lou with a pencil drawing some things on a page or whatever we might have, like, just so people can visualize things, or we don't want to do that we don't want to make any promises we can't keep. Thanks.
Through your worship, very good question. Yes, what we're intending on having are some, we'll call it precedent images and maybe some basic models of the type and amount of development that could be permitted under the bylaw. It won't necessarily be very detailed, down to the architectural schematics of it, but it would be helpful, you're correct, to visualize what does all this bylaw text mean, and we'll try and do it without loose drawings.
Well, I think we should add them for comparison. So, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had one quick question.
Yeah.
Very detailed report, phenomenal reading, very definitive, right down to the number of bicycle parking spaces, which I was amazed at. But I think in the transportation master plan, we identified the need for hundreds of electrical vehicle charging stations. Is there anything in this proposal that stipulates that we need to put in X number of EV charging stations? Or how do we define that? Thank you.
Through your worship, yes, there is something that we are proposing in the draft bylaw within the parking section. It would be new for St. Thomas to have an EV-ready parking requirement. And so we are proposing that within the bylaw, that a certain percentage, depending on how many parking spaces are required for each use, would be EV-ready.
Okay, excellent. Further questions or comments? Seeing none? Oh, Mr. Pompili, you wanted to display some of your drawings or?
I'll share that with council at a later date. No, I just wanted to take this opportunity to really thank Brandon and the whole planning team that
Yeah.
that assisted Brandon in putting this work together. It's as you can see, it's a pretty ambitious document, and he's worked very tirelessly, and as well as with support from our planning team to put this together. And that keeps us online with our HAF funding requirements as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge him to council for that.
Well, thank you for doing that. They've been working hard on getting some of these big things done. So great. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Next item relates to proposed amendments to site plan control bylaw and the site plan control committee operation rules or procedures bylaw. This is also a follow-up report. I have a motion that report PD 0126 relating to the proposed amendments to the site plan control bylaw and the site plan control committee operation and rules of procedure bylaw follow-up report be received for information, and further, the council authorize the preparation of a new site plan control bylaw and a new site plan control committee operation and rules of procedure bylaw as outlined in report PD 0126. Moved by Councillor Herbert, second by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Full of questions tonight.
Great.
I like the changes that are occurring here. That quick question, it talks about 120 meters, parts located within 120 meters of wetlands, lakes, rivers, including creeks and streams. St. Thomas is full of creeks and streams, I believe. Does this mean that every creek that runs through St. Thomas would fall into this?
Yes, the Elgin translation of creek. Yes.
Yes. And then the second part of that question, is it from the center line of the creek or from the
High water mark. Yeah.
top of the boundary of the ravine, for example? Then what was it, 120 meters or 300 meters from railway line? Is it from the top of the bank or from the center line? Just curious, because that's going to take up practically all of St. Thomas.
But what is the setback from a creek? Please.
So through your worship, it would be some of the more significant features. It wouldn't be absolutely every creek. It would be ones that are more significant on our mapping. It would generally be the areas that are already regulated by the conservation authorities. And it would be taken, the 120 meters would be taken from the edge of the feature. I think the edge of the wetland, the edge of the lake, or the edge of the creek, the edge of the stream. Just because if it was the center line, if it was a large feature, that would be challenging to do. But yeah, so that would be the intention. A lot of those areas are already sort of designated natural heritage, and that was already captured in the site plan bylaw, but it's just making sure that we capture and are better able to regulate those areas. So right now, the site plan bylaw applies to, before the provincial change came in, 3 or more units to begin with. So it would just be reverting back to that in these particular instances, just to make sure that we're better able to regulate it. But in that case, admittedly, with that setback from those features, it's already generally regulated by the conservation authorities too.
Great. Further questions? Thank you, John. Councillor Raimo, great to have you back with us and asking questions.
I just wanted to say that it's really great. It's like continuous quality improvement, always keeping on top of what's happening with the ministry, the different changes, and then also making sure that developers are aware these are the standards. You know, things aren't always static, things will always change or evolve. So it's really refreshing to see that everything is getting looked at on a constant basis.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Under administration, 12.2 violations and penalties, who is the person that would be doing the enforcing of the violations and penalties? How does that work?
I think we would just hire on some former referees or something, basketball or.
So through your worship, currently site plan is enforced by our, we've got the bylaw officer within our, the building services. She typically would deal with matters associated with site plan.
Sorry, just to follow up. So does someone have to complain Or does the bylaw officer does his own investigation and finds there are problems?
So through your worship, bylaw enforcement is a complaint-based system in the city, so it would be through complaints.
Further questions? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Under Appendix B, number 15 talks about the site plan approval expiring, and I'm just wondering if it talks about what you have to do so that it can kind of roll over. I'm just wondering what does happen if it expires? Where does the applicant go from there if they let it lapse?
Through your worship, if it lapsed, they would have to reapply.
And so then they have to go through all the documentation. Does that mean new fees again?
It depends if there have been significant changes. If there haven't been significant changes, I think we can just we have a separate fees like an amendment fee. We probably charge that fee. We could do it. We haven't encountered that, so it's just something that we'd have to kind of assess as we go. I don't see that's not a common thing for it to expire, but that's likely the process we'd follow.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Is there anyone opposed? That's carried.
Next item relates to the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund Service Agreement. I have motion the report SCSS 0126 related to the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund Service Agreement be received for information, and further the council direct that a bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund Service Agreement as it relates to the federal commitment of $362,116 for the creation of a new youth homelessness prevention program. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Great. Questions or comments? Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. I was very pleased to see this new initiative here, and I was hoping that the Ms. Nielsen would come to the podium, as she already is, and provide some highlights to those that may be watching at home. But again, very pleased to see this here and see us still continuing to move forward. Thank you.
Nielsen.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. Through Your Worship to Councillor Baldwin-Sands, thank you very much for the inquiry and the request for some highlights to be shared with the public. We are also very happy to see this resource come to our community. As all of you know, or I hope you know, Social Services is very committed to bringing any and all additional resources to support vulnerable people here in St. Thomas and Elgin County. This project in particular will be led by the YWCA in partnership with us at Social Services for the sole purpose of bringing additional case management and financial resources to our community to support youth experiencing homelessness. It's an ambitious project. The goal is to reach a functional end to youth homelessness during the time period of this pilot project, which is 12 months. And the case managers that will be recruited and employed by St. Thomas Elgin YWCA will have a balanced caseload that looks at the acuity or the need of the individual they're supporting to ensure that that case manager has capacity to match the level of support that's needed for that person and access to financial resources to help move the dial.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. The public at home should know that these are the types of projects this is allowing us to work on. Great. I have Councillor Taylor first, then Wookie, then Herbert. Clark.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate that. Danielle, congratulations on getting money, more money. More money is always good, right? I just have a quick question. It did talk about round one and round two. I'm just looking for the clarification on what was round one. Is this round one or is this round two? And I have another question after that.
Please go ahead.
Through Your Worship, thank you very much for your question, Councillor Taylor. So this project in particular is round two of 5 total rounds that will play out over the next 3 years. So last year included, so 2 more to go. Round one was a project specific to targeting people experiencing chronic homelessness that have left homelessness and are now housed. We have 2 additional staff on our team that are committed to working diligently to prevent them from returning to homelessness, because that's one of the ways that overall we can look towards that functional end to all homelessness in our community.
Go ahead.
And a follow-up, just a second question. It talks about reducing homelessness by 18 individuals. But I think in the September 2025 report that was presented, we had larger numbers than that. In fact, they were into the numbers of like 102 youth were included and 52 new youth were accessed. How are we down to 18? And at 18, it talks about eliminating youth homelessness. So is there a need, if we eliminate homelessness for youth in round 2, is there a need to worry about round 3, or are we done?
Thank you for the question, through your worship. I really appreciate you asking for that clarification. So for the report that came forward earlier about looking at 2024 as a whole, the number of youth reported were the number of youth who received any type of support from YWCA through the Youth Homelessness Protocol, whether it was prevention before an occurrence of homelessness or at any point throughout the year. The number that's referenced here is using data pulled from our by names list, which looks at how many people or youth in this situation are known to us to be actively experiencing homelessness or at an imminent risk of experiencing homelessness. That's where that number 18 comes from, and that's certainly our focus right now. One of the caveats that's important to share, I think, in general, is that homelessness data is fluid. So that number can and will likely change throughout the year. And hopefully if we're successful here, there may not be a need for this specific intervention to continue, but it will require significant effort to be made around prevention so that we never again have 18 or more or less youth experiencing homelessness at any given time. The future rounds of funding through this HRIF opportunity don't have to be specific to youth homelessness or chronic homelessness. There's opportunity for us to continue looking at targeting priority populations, again, with that goal of reaching that functional end to homelessness and then sustaining it.
Councillor Wookey next.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Danielle. So having had a loved one who, young male who faced abrupt homelessness, and on that night when we called the Youth Homelessness Protocol, there was no volunteer available at the male shelter, and the instruction was to go to the inn. I guess my question is, that was an unfortunate outcome in that situation. How would having more people, like I just kind of want to, some more granular information, if you have it, on how would having more people change that situation, say that situation or a situation like that? For instance, while I'm speaking, and then I'll stop. When I see the word acuity, it's one of those things where, there's some acuities that are very visible, but there are acuities in terms of mental health that aren't visible, that you could observe somebody and talk to them, but you might not know what's going on, as we know, because they don't have a track record behind them in the system, right? So I think that's one of the challenges with youth homelessness is we don't know our clientele that well yet. So if you can offer some just observations perhaps about how this will work, because I don't want to sound cynical, but to have more people looking at the situation doesn't help if there's no place for those people to go. So, so I'm just looking for a little observation about that. I'm super happy that we've got more funding for this, and I know that it will help out because there's more eyes on those young people and to interact with them instead of somebody being overloaded. But I'll leave it at that and let you offer some comments, please.
Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, and through your worship to Councillor Wookey, thank you for the question. So I'm going to parcel my answer out into 3 areas, if that's okay, and hopefully I've captured it correctly. So it's around shelter access for youth, it's around the Youth Homelessness Protocol itself, as well as acuity. Perfect, thank you. So for acuity, you're correct. It's very tricky work to perfectly identify the level of acuity that a person, whether they're a youth or any age, is presenting with. Even the tool that we use to score them on acuity isn't a perfect tool. One of the benefits that I have found in doing this work here in St. Thomas Elgin is because we're a close-knit community and we're highly collaborative, there's an opportunity for us to talk to each other. So even though the acuity score might indicate that, I'll use myself, Danielle has low acuity, Our service providers might know otherwise, and there could be an opportunity to say, even though Danielle's score is low, we strongly recommend that you consider her for mid or higher acuity supports and services as they become available. So it's tricky to navigate, but we certainly do the best we can. And in my experience so far, I think we do a good job, but this work is never perfect. There's always room for improvement in every aspect of the way that we provide a homelessness response in our community. In terms of the youth homelessness protocol, speaking on behalf of the YWCA, of course, who leads that work, there's a lot of moving parts to what that protocol is above and beyond access to shelter. Essentially, the goal for the youth homelessness protocol is to make that occurrence of homelessness as rare as possible, as brief as possible, but working towards achieving housing stability. I think a lot of us know from the work that we're doing and what we're learning together in homelessness is that it's rare that it's just the absence of housing that's created an occurrence of homelessness. So the youth homelessness protocol is looking at how do we get people attached to mental health supports, counseling, proper income, poverty reduction, family navigation, community navigation, and we also know that no two occurrences of homelessness are alike. So despite our efforts to try to create a system that's robust, again, there's always room for improvement and always areas for us to look to say, how do we better meet the needs of the people who are presenting in need of our supports and services? So yeah, the youth homelessness protocol has many moving parts. The way that these two new positions will help the protocol is that they are on top of existing resources. So this will provide us with 2 new dedicated case managers who can connect to those youth. Some of them will have higher needs to navigate that system towards that housing stability outcome. In terms of access to shelter, you are also correct, it's tricky for youth. I don't know anyone who would disagree with the fact that a 16-year-old accessing the inn and even older is ideal. It is a service that's available to us now, and sometimes it works for young people, sometimes it doesn't. I know the inn is really good about trying to use their flex rooms to give younger people and other priority populations more privacy and a smaller space to navigate when they can. And then, of course, Youth for Christ is available sometimes when there's an occurrence of homelessness, but because it's run on volunteers, it's often available for lower or mid-acuity youth, so youth who don't have complex needs, and subject to the availability of volunteers. So there's definitely room for improvement there. It's something that myself and my director speak about regularly. We're looking forward to engaging with the leadership involved in the youth homelessness protocol and access to shelter in the near future to look for areas of improvement. And we're always open to receiving feedback and thoughts and ideas from council and members of the public as well.
Thanks. Councillor Clark, did you have?
I'm very pleased with the report and with the money. So I just wanted to applaud the staff for their ongoing efforts on the whole topic. My question was more related to funding and kind of an off question in terms of, is there any new money on the horizon from either the federal government or the provincial government, which would allow the city to broaden our efforts in housing, in including more senior low rental housing?
Thank you for the question, through your worship. Yes, we're always hopeful that even more than what we know is coming will come. But the example that comes top of mind for me right now would be Build Canada Homes. We're still waiting on more detail to come through on opportunity to apply for that grant and program. In addition, advocacy is relentless on our end, especially my director, Heather, to the province and the feds about accessing the resources that we need to truly create the type of sustainability and affordability that we need in our community.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Danielle. This is always pretty exciting when you can get more money to help homeless people, for sure. I got kind of a 2 or 3 part question here. So in June, you applied and you received $376,000, correct?
Thank you, Councillor Herbert. I don't have the report in front of me, so I don't have the exact dollar amount.
Okay. It says you received $362,000.
I wrote that report, so I'm going to trust those numbers.
So have you applied again? It says you've applied again, and you have not. You don't know if you've got that or not, or?
This is round 2, and we've been confirmed as receiving the round 2 funding, which will flow through us to the YWCA, subject to council approving and authorizing the bylaw for us to do
Okay,
so.
so on saying that, when you're putting 2 new full-times into the Y, and they're going to help out with the in and outreach service, et cetera, what happens when that funding runs out? What happens to the 2 full-time people? Are they done or whatever? That was my question.
Through your worship, thank you for the question, Councillor Herbert. So the YWCA is aware that this is a pilot project of federal funding intended only for a 12-month period. So they're going into that with their eyes open.
Okay.
They will post for positions for people who are also aware that they're signing on for a 12-month contract. Subject to the pilot project being successful and the need for it to continue, we would certainly support the YWCA to seek out other grants or funding opportunities, whether it's through HRIF or other, is subject to it being needed. But they went into this fully aware that it is only a 12-month project and there's no continuation funding or plan in place at this point in time.
So just to follow up, sorry. So would there be a chance in 2 years to apply for a grant again? Do you have any idea that would happen again, or this is just one shot in the dark, one time?
Through your worship, so it is a one-time pilot project of 12 months as round 2 of HRIF funding, but HRIF has 5 rounds in total. So there could be a future opportunity before HRIF dries up, for lack of a better term.
Thank you, Danielle. Further questions or comments? Very good answers on what this does accomplish for our community. So, Councillor Taylor?
I apologize for coming back to the floor with another question.
worries.
But in hearing Danielle speak of all the good things that are happening, finding housing, health services, et cetera, what I haven't heard here is how do we ensure that these folks that need the help move into employment? They can't live on this forever. We get them into a home, into housing. How do we find jobs for them to carry on with their life? Is that part of this program? Is there something here to help the youth that way?
Through your worship, thank you very much for the question. And again, speaking on behalf of the YWCA, the programs that they offer for youth, including youth experiencing homelessness, do include education and employment. But in general, for people experiencing homelessness, that would be seen as an opportunity on a spectrum. So our goal initially, of course, is always about achieving housing and then housing stability. And with housing stability comes the opportunity to definitely look at re-engaging into ways to contribute to society and to their community, whether it's education, employment, or other. And that's often a function of the case managers that are working frontline with the people that have previously or are experiencing homelessness. Just very briefly, I apologize for maybe speaking at a turn. I think it's important to acknowledge all of your appreciation. I'm also very appreciative of the staff who do this work. It's not just me. I get to be the face of it sometimes, but it's a tremendous effort by the Housing Stability Services team, by our community partners, by council, by our community volunteers. So I just think it's important to share the sunshine a little bit.
Can I just ask one to Danielle? The youth protocol, and I know it was designed by the YWCA and delivered a lot by Youth for Christ and Kyle and his team over there, volunteer driven. Is that different than other communities? I mean, our youth protocol seems to have a little bit more visibility than I've heard from other communities. Am I correct in saying it's been about a couple of years, maybe 3 years into this youth protocol?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. You are correct. It is different from other communities of similar size and scale. Often communities that are similar to our size and scale will reach out and look to us for some leadership or some information. And when I say us, I mean the YWCA and all of our community partners that are involved. It's exceptional given the size of our population. In larger rural areas, you will see youth-specific shelters. So for example, in the City of London, they operate, YOU operates a shelter specific for the ages of 16 to 24. That really would be ideal. Funding becomes a challenge, population size becomes a challenge, looking at the numbers. So, for example, in the City of London, there's probably more than a couple hundred youth experiencing homelessness on any given night. So that changes the funding, that changes the response. But for our size and scale, our protocol is unlike other areas. So your observation is correct.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Great work.
Last item for this committee is notice from the Committee of Adjustment regarding an application for a minor variance by Beach Glass Developments for the property at 3 Regent Street. And the minor variance relates to driveway width, driveway area, and deck and exterior stairs located on the south side of the dwelling. And that was attached for the members' information due to the detail in the various elements of the minor variance. Your worship, unless there's any further items from the members for this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to the establishment of a tree trust chapter in St. Thomas for privately owned mature trees. I have a motion that report PRF 0126 regarding the establishment of a tree trust chapter in the city of St. Thomas be received for information, and further the council direct that a bylaw be prepared to authorize mayor and clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Elora Center for Environmental Excellence to establish a local tree trust chapter focused exclusively on supporting preservation work for privately owned mature trees. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question, 2 questions actually. When it comes to the cost of the programming, I was just wondering if the time slot that the staff's already doing the work right now, if it would be a little overbearing administrating this kind of a program, and in with the cost, if we do decide to do a Wild Wisdom event, would that come under our budget? Your next year budget plan. So I just don't want to see staff being crunched into time in doing something like this or causing any overtime. I was just wondering if there was any concerns with that, Adrian. Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Gibson, thank you for the questions. This work will be overseen by the Elora Environmental Center, so through Tree Trust. So there will not be any additional work put on our city staff. We are working in partnership with them to oversee the program. So, and then additionally, the Wild Wisdom series has been in place for the last couple of years, and it is something that we put together through our department and with cooperation of tourism to promote and have the public come out to get more information on topics like this, and that will be done on a Saturday afternoon. And so once we firm up all of that information with Tree Trust, we'll have that out to the public, but there's no additional pressure on staff.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
I enjoyed reading this submission, and I do have a question in regards to building the capacity. You bring in the public awareness and the public education programs. How over the last few years leading to this report tonight, how have those programs been increasing and supplying public awareness and public education?
Please.
Through your worship to Councillor Baldwin Sands, thank you for the question. This is an area that staff really noted as a place that we couldn't facilitate for private trees, and where we really struggle with wanting to preserve them, and also, you know, we understand that it's an additional cost, but along with our striving to complete an urban forestry management plan, we want to make sure that this is a piece available to the public, so that if there is help needed, this will be there. And we want to make sure that when working with Tree Trust, that we are able to get it out to the public as much as possible to advertise for this program. And then also to gain interest through volunteers that will donate to the program. So it will be continued engagement to make sure that the public's aware of these resources.
Great. Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. As a person who has a probably 120-year-old oak tree in their backyard, and I care deeply about this tree, but this will be great for me or to, if I'm part of the program, to get advice on trimming it. Like obviously I'm not asking somebody to trim it, but to even know what to do to help that tree and the other trees like there. And so I really think this is a wonderful initiative for us because, as you say, so many of those important trees are on private property. And if this helps us even save 20, 100-year-old trees, I mean, that does a lot for nature. So thanks very much for directing us with this initiative.
Great point. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you need any help, I'm a retired Boy Scout leader, and I was able to identify that every tree out there is a wood tree. If that helps, just call me anytime if you can't identify it. But quick question. I believe that we did have, I've seen the plaques on trees around town. Are they on private property? Or are they all municipal properties? Because I think we had a program at one time where trees were already identified and plaqued. Will these trees being identified under this program have a plaque as well? Will it bring in those municipal identified trees or private trees into this program as well?
Through your worship to Councillor Taylor, we will not be dealing with any municipal trees through this program because we already have operational costs that cover the maintenance of our municipal trees. So this is strictly for private trees. And yes, we have talked about how do we recognize the trees that have been through this program. We were kicking around some ideas today about starting a Tree of the Year program. So there's lots of good initiatives that we can get out to the public so that they're aware of the program and they see the results of the program as well.
Great. Further questions or comments? Adrian, I just love the presence of this. We in our time, sometimes in council, we hear the controversy of I have a tree and somebody from the city saying I have to do such and such, and the opposite is also true. This helps us work together with privately owned properties and the municipal, what we already know, what we're doing through our arbor people. But it's really, it sounds like we're not trying to pick a fight. We're trying to help put a solution in place that fits everyone. Do you see it this way? Or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We, like I said, we recognized it was a support that we couldn't offer, and we're very proud that we came across Tree Trust, and it's a growing charity in the province of Ontario, so we're excited to be one of the first municipal chapters of this charity.
Great work. Thank you, and thanks to the Elora Environment Center and their help in making this happen in our community too. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimously approved. Thanks.
Your worship, that concludes the items under this committee, unless there are any items from the members.
Councillor Rymal has her hand.
I actually have one. I wasn't sure if Adrian was leaving or for the end of the meeting. Anyway, it's just about the Pinafore sign. I know there's been a lot of people that are concerned about the old Pinafore sign that was at the Pinafore Park. It's an iconic sign, and I've reached out to Adrian, and she assures me that the current sign is just a placeholder. And that in the budget of 2023, there was a project put in at that time for a new sign for both Pinafore and Waterworks Park, and that wasn't approved, but they are looking at other options and, maybe be able to look at the older sign, but it still is in the works. It's not a dead issue by any means. And I could just mention, I don't know whether it goes under communication, but on January 22nd, Parks and Rec are having an open house at the Joe Thornton Center from 2 to 4 and 6 to 8. So I'm sure Adrian would welcome any questions anyone have about the sign at that time.
And my understanding, thank you, Councillor Rymal, my understanding is it's not in perfect shape, the old sign that was taken down, and it is an old wooden sign. And so some decision has to be made about not only just the style and design, but the life worthiness of the old sign versus what we're currently using. Would you care to add to that?
Yes, that's correct. We have explored some ideas of maybe showcasing it somewhere in Pinafore Park in the future. But yes, the current sign is just to ensure that people know that we're Pinafore Park, because that was one of the biggest complaints. They didn't know where to turn in. So what we are exploring is something that will last a lot longer and has more of a historical feel to it. So unfortunately, when we priced it out before, it was quite expensive, but we're going to look for other options to explore.
I'm glad you're working on it. Thank you. Further questions or comments? Anything else for this committee? Seeing none.
We'll move to infrastructure and civic operations. Nothing on the agenda at this time unless there are any items from the members.
Seeing none.
Seeing none, your worship, we'll move to corporate governance and administration. First item relates to property tax exemptions. I have a motion that report TR 0126 relating to property tax exemptions be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments on it? Councillor Reimel?
Yes, thanks very much to Adam for the report. I appreciate it very much. It's very good information to have. I just wanted to ask a question on the second page under ownership near the bottom of the paragraph. It says property tax exemptions are applied on a property by property basis and may change over time as ownership or use changes. So who monitors that? Is that MPAC or is that the city, or how does that happen?
Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a combination of MPAC and the city. Change in ownership is something that would be conveyed to the city through a lawyer, through a real estate transaction, and then we would refer that information over to MPAC, who would update the records, which would perhaps trigger a change of classification or a further review of the property.
Go ahead. I know you've got more.
Sorry. So under the heads and beds levy, for the hospital, for instance, we received $30,000 in lieu of property taxes, which is a very, very small amount. And I'm just wondering, that hasn't been reviewed for a long time. Is there any way, you know, that we can lobby government or whatever to have them reassess that?
We could certainly try. I know that there's other things that the city is lobbying for. Some of the bigger cities in the province, that has been a common complaint of theirs. Some of the cities with the bigger hospitals and bigger universities that would generate a higher heads and beds levy have lobbied for it in the past unsuccessfully, but that's something that the city could throw their hat in on as well.
So just one more. So when we're looking at grants or requests for city funds, usually those are tax-based. That's usually where we get the money from. So I think when those requests come to council, it'd be also good to look at the tax exemption benefit if that charity or organization is also receiving, to kind of help balance out the request. You know, are they paying any taxes or a tax exemption? So just to help balance out the request.
I love what you're saying, Councillor Reimel. We over time sometimes, whether we give somebody use of Pinafore Park or something as a community grant, we still have to account for what the lost revenue was and what is being used there. So I like the thought of us, if someone is asking for us for a community grant or community assistance financially, that we also continue to refer to them that, remember, you're not paying the same level of taxes as a residential property would, and that's part of the where we of course get the money to hand to you. So I love what you're saying, that we maybe need to be more cognizant that some of that also occurs, even though it's great for us to be a great community organization and to help other great community organizations. Remind them that they're already saving on some of the rules that are put forward by the province. Okay. Anything further? Seeing none on the report, those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
At this time, council will reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees.
Okay. Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
On Monday, December the 29th, the Health Recruitment Partnership did host Home for the Holidays events for our scholarship winners for the medical scholarships. I am pleased to announce that Jessica Brown, Brandon Brower, Cole Gordon, Abigail Beamish, Ashlyn Hersey, Tiffany Johnson, and Brian Melbrown from our community and from the town of Elmer and across Elgin County were recognized for their time in medical school. And hopefully that they will be coming back to the city of St. Thomas and to the Elgin County community in order to hang their shingle and become a family doctor for our community. That being said, we also did have with you in attendance. It was great that we had the all of those open doors that we did with some of the questions and answers that we had. We were able to introduce our strategic plan, our new strategic plan. We had some family physicians that did attend and invited some of the scholarship winners because they are going to be doing their rotations with their residency, et cetera. And with some of their electives that they opened their doors and said, if you need a place, I will gladly host you for your family doctor rotation. So that was something that was new and innovative that we had done that day. And it was a wonderful afternoon. And I just want to say thank you to your worship for contributing to the gift bags and to see if you also have any other announcements about that day.
Yeah, certainly. I want to say thank you for the work that was put in by the rest of the committee to make this happen. But I took a little bit of a different stride that day to spend a lot of time talking to parents. Now, you've never seen a prouder parent than a medical student's parents, I think. But just to verify that they're thinking the same as us, that we'd love these students to come back to St. Thomas, and we're happy to reward them now, but for that to happen. And I think it was pretty much unanimous in the room from parents' point of view of where those children should live after they're done their studies. But so great to the physician recruitment, and it's always fun to get to meet some of them, and you know, the brightest and smartest in our community for the most part too. So thanks, Councillor Baldwin-Sands, for your work on that effort too.
Your worship, at this time, we'll move into communications. First item is a request that council proclaim Human Trafficking Awareness Day and a flag raising. So I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim February the 22nd, 2026 as Human Trafficking Awareness Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the Victim Services Elgin flag be flown at City Hall on February the 23rd, 2026. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is a request for jumbo lighting relating to International Long COVID Awareness Day. I have a motion that the jumbo monument be lit in teal from March the 9th to 16th, 2026 in recognition of International Long COVID Awareness Day. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Last item under communications is a copy of a letter addressed to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Board of Directors regarding the board's comments on the Environmental Registry of Ontario number 0251257 relating to proposed boundaries for the Regional Consolidation of Ontario's Conservation Authorities. Unless there are any further items from the members, we'll now move into unfinished business of council.
Councillor Reimel, did you have a hand? Yes.
I just wanted to ask on, I guess, communication. Going forward as the council and looking at the, the bigger picture when we get more properties and more people, and that education is important. And I just wonder if we've had any updates from the school board as to what's happening, especially with the secondary school. As far as Arthur Bowden, I understand some parents have received communication that make sure your kid has a sweater because if the heat fails, it won't be turned on. So, knowing that when people come to work in St. Thomas, we want them also to live here. Mm-hmm. And education is a big part of that. And so, do we have some updates from the Thames Valley School District School Board as to what's happening with secondary school and those kind of things?
Yes. Very much so. I'll hand it off to the city manager also, but we've been talking to the planning people at both of the school boards for a number of years now, because we do pretty good planning and we've been very accurate in our growth and what we need to do in St. Thomas. And the new school situation is also something to see. I know that our city manager is meeting with the school board this week, I think, on that topic alone. So we've already had a couple of conversations on it. City Manager?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. And through you to Council, I can confirm that city staff are working with the planners at Thames Valley District School Board and London District Catholic School Board in identifying sites for future schools and kind of exploring the feasibility of those sites, and also in supporting business cases to develop secondary schools or elementary schools on those sites. We also remain committed to utilizing surplus schools for housing projects and other municipal priorities, as we did with the Balaclava Street project. So the mayor is correct. I am meeting with school board planners in the coming weeks. So,
Anything else under unfinished? Seeing none.
We'll now move into new business of council.
Councillor Herbert, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. Well, over the Christmas holidays, and I guess for the month of December, we had the big Christmas tree display at the Railway Museum. And I had the opportunity to volunteer a couple of times. My wife Rita was there, I think 3 or 4 times. But the last night I was there on the Saturday week before Christmas, I was there from 5 till 9, and I had to do the clicker. Close to 1,400 people went through that to see that Christmas display. And people were coming out, say, it's fantastic and everything. And then I'd say, where are you from? Well, we're from London. I said, how'd you find out? Well, it's just word of mouth, but it's fantastic. And I'll be spreading it around too. So anyway, it's kudos to the people who put that all together, but really great display. So thank you.
Yep. Councillor Clark? And I don't mean to be rushing you, but we're stepping on our public meeting to start at 6 o'clock. So.
Thanks. I'm not sure if I need to do this as a notice of motion or whether or not we can get consensus tonight. A few months back, we had talked about expanding the Valley View Day program, and we realized that we can't do it without provincial support. And but I'm wondering if we were to get that support in the next few months, whether or not we have identified where we could run that program, or whether or not we would need an expansion at Valley View to run it, whether or not we would need an expansion at the senior center, or whether we not need to identify another place. So I'm just wondering if there was consensus, if we could ask staff to review where that program would work if the funding was to come through. The legislation came out in May. There hasn't been any dollars flowing yet, but they could happen soon. And if it was, we wouldn't want to then, after finally getting the money, not be able to run the program because we didn't have a location. So I don't know if I need a notice of motion or whether or not council would agree that we could ask staff to look into this and come up with some options for us.
I think we often simply take consensus at council and ask staff to come back with it. I see Michael Carroll is on tonight. And if it's, I'm seeing nods. So, Madam Clerk, please correct the mayor if he's gone afar, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Based on the recently amended procedural bylaw, council direction should take place by resolution. So I just need a seconder for that resolution. Councillor Raimo.
Okay, now that we have a seconder, I don't almost want to ask for questions and comments, but I will. Questions and comments? Seeing none, then all in favor of it? Unanimous. Perfect. Way to go, Councillor Clark. We'll ask staff to please start working on what and how it might be if we got into further daycare or day responsibility with our seniors.
Your Worship, at this time, I suggest that council recess and start the public meeting.
Sounds like the right time of day to do it. So we're still working through our open session with a closed session to go after we're done our public meeting. That is to start right now.
Your Worship, at this time, if we can reconvene into regular session of council. We had just completed new business. Next order of business is public notice. No public.
Do that now?
You still have something for new business?
Thank you. Yes.
Please.
While our Kevin is here, could you just give us an update on the Fairview Ave Bridge? So a lot of people are still asking, when do you think we'll get our stoplights in, or when will it actually open up? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dielebek.
Through the mayor to council, we were anticipating the supply of traffic signal poles and streetlights over the holidays. If you drove past the site today, you'll see that there still have not been delivered. They're anticipating the delivery later this week with commissioning such that the traffic or the intersection could be open at the end of next week is the latest information that we have.
So don't go through it till the lights are on. Thank you for asking, Councilor Herbert. Anything else under new business? Seeing none, we'll move on.
No notices of motion this evening. There is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with a proposed or pending disposition of land, a matter of information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality by the province of Ontario, a matter of litigation or potential litigation, a labor relations matter, and 2 personal matters about identifiable individuals. Moved by Councillor Reimel, second by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on going into closed session? Seeing none, I'd like to remind the folks that are still watching us from home or streaming online or on Rogers, we'll be now going into closed session. We'll only come out of closed session in order to vote on the things we do in closed session and to adjourn for the day. So we thank you for joining us tonight and joining us for the public meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And we will be moving into 304 for our closed session.
Your worship, at this time, I have a motion to rise from closed session. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Long discussion or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First item in open session, I have a motion that council approve the roster of committee appointments as defined on January the 12th, 2026. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Next order of business are bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 12th day of January, 2026.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 117 to the City of St. Thomas official plan. This is to implement the 2025 Transportation Master Plan.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 50-88, being the zoning bylaw for the City of St. Thomas. This also is to implement the 2025 Transportation Master Plan.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fourth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and HXM Eternal 2 Inc. This relates to a grant acknowledgement agreement under the Community Improvement Plan Program for 483 Talbot Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fifth and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. This relates to the Youth Homelessness Prevention Program.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Your worship, I rise to report the passing of 5 bylaws. Thank you.
Incredible work.
I have a motion by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 5 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? See, I forgot what the line was. Questions? Do you have a question, Councillor Herbert? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No further items on the agenda, Your Worship. At this time, I have a motion for adjournment moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on adjournment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.